I think you'll find a variety within the comedic community. You'll find your heroes, from the full spectrum of heroes to vultures. You know what I mean? And there are some that will take you under the wing and are so protective of you and see your light and see your way in this industry and believe in you and keep you encouraged.
I heard about you before I met you. Christy Madrano and I.
The lovely and talented Christy Madrano.
The amazing, funny, wonderful, biting Christy
Fireball,
Madrano.
Spitfire.
And I were walking into the Comedy Store to get ready. I think we might have been doing Funny Ladies of Color or something. We walked in and Chewy, the doorman, said, you guys know who Sandy Brown is? I was like, Sandy who? Sandy Brown. Oh, she's hot. She's been here all week. She's this, she's that. You guys need to put her on your show. And then we walk in, and there was some comedy paper at that time, and we opened it up, and there was a whole article on you. And me and Chrissy was like, we need to know who this Sandy Brown person is. And probably about 2 hours later, you popped up at the Comedy Store.
Yes.
And you were coming in, and we pretty much jumped you. We're like, are you Sandy Brown?
And it was so weird. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Because are you the Sandy Brown? That's what it was. Okay. So here's the backstory. Make sure you bring me back there if I go off too far. I went to school at UC Berkeley. I was pre-med, but I loved art. And I took a chance, and I did a semester program at NYU Film and Television. And I had done a sketch troupe on the campus. But when I went to do
stand-up, at NYU or Berkeley?
I began a campus sketch troupe at UC Berkeley.
Okay.
And the second semester, people's schedules had changed, but they wanted to do it. And I was like, I'm not going to wait because you wait for other people. You do your work. You do your creativity. So I said, let me just take all of these characters on stage. So I went to the Holy City Zoo, which is a famous club, small room in San Francisco, run by Will and Debbie Durst, the famous Will Durst. And I got up on stage.
And that's a room that Robert Williams used to play at.
Oh, yeah. Yes. It's And I went there, and you know who was in the audience at the time of my first day? It was Aisha Tyler and her husband. I remember they were in the back. So anyway, so I went there, and I'm all casual, and I did my whole sketch show, because I had wrote, directed, and produced like an 18-member cast of sketch comedy. And so I already had road tested all of these jokes and things like that and characters, and I was teaching some of them how to do those characters. I said, let me just do them. I did them back to back to back on the stand-up stage, and I got laughs, but there were no segues because they were sketches. So I was like, and so then it was like I didn't have the format of stand-up. And this couple had sat at the bar, and they said, how long have you been doing it? I said, this is my first night, and I was forever hooked. Now, foundation of this is my mother, Candace Lilly, showcased for Mitzi Shore way back in the day
at the Comedy
Store.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it had to be circa 1982 because she was doing this bit about Vanessa Williams winning Miss America and how America just didn't know what to do when they felt, well, she's black, African American. And so my mom made a sass. She was giving you prop comedy and giving you, of African American Miss America. And she'd gone to the club. Mitzi loved her, and then Mitzi wanted her back. And I remember when she had gone back a few times, and then she goes, I don't want to be anywhere around that, because at that time in the 80s, it is known as to be perhaps snort
debauchery.
Heaven. Debauchery. Can we say okay, coke heaven? And my mom, as a single mom, she was like, my mom, she really didn't drink, all these different things. So it wasn't her scene, and so she felt very uncomfortable being around that, even though she had been in the industry in another aspect of it as a makeup artist in the blaxploitation era, and is even in a couple of those films as cameos. She was like, this scene, I don't think I can bring my daughter, because you would have to have your daughter with you, or figure out nighttime stuff every
Single
night to be in the
mom.
rooms, or
That's
on the
right.
road. You'd have to figure out a way for your children. As a single mom, it didn't say,
Yes.
So, but that is her love. That is her thing of funny, and she would always write scripts. I remember her working at the lot, Paramount lot, and Solid Gold with Rick Dees, and doing funny scripts and writing and submitting. And so it's like that's what I grew up on, but it never connected for me until later. And so when I did the stand-up, it was so fun. It was one of those whoosh, the aha moment, or the satori, as I say, where you go, oh, you have an awakening about yourself. And so I went back to campus. I said, this is what I want to do. I stepped away from theater at that point, and I just started doing stand-up. I was recommended by the godfather of comedy there, Tony Sparks, and Blaine Capatch, one of the luminaries of the alternative comedy scene, recommended me for Punchline, because you had to get a recommendation to be able to get in. Did that. They recorded the set. I used that set to submit to things. It was a 15-minute set.
This is the set that got you the.
This is exactly
the manager.
That's what happened. So it was 15-minute set. It was all the material I had, but you wouldn't know it. And I submitted it to the San Francisco Punchline competition, and I got in, became a finalist, and there were amazing people in that. Should I say the names? Okay, there was Wanda Sykes was in there. I was just a baby right there at UC Berkeley. Wanda Sykes was there. Mitch Hedberg, Shang, Carlos Alazraqui. I mean, there were all these people that were well steeped in the game, and here I am going, I just got my little 15 minutes of material, I was so out of my league, but I had made my way, and I did not win, but I was one of the 3 people that were chosen by Carsey Warner for a meeting, as well as I got my agency, my UTA was my first agent through there, and management with Arthur Spivak. So I was set, in terms of that. But they're still trying to figure out, okay, so how do I pay for a plane to LA? How do I get back there? And that's when I got back here, and I stayed with my brother for a while.
So you kind of broke out quickly here. I mean, you got into the store, you got a development deal, then got another development deal. You started doing commercials. You started you just started taking off.
My first club I was passed at was at the Comedy Store, so I became a paid regular at the Comedy Store. That was my first club. The second one was the Laugh Factory, and it was an amazing time. I mean, I just lived and breathed, ate, slept, and drank comedy and performance. And what ended up happening is that the TV started taking off a lot, and so it was kind of flipping the time that I would spend in comedy clubs. It was more so preparing for my auditions, or if I booked a series that I'm focused on that as well.
And you have a great story with Richard Pryor.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
At the Comedy Store.
Yes. Richard Pryor, it was such an honor when he would come into the store that everybody would want to watch and hang out and see him. There was one night that I had to follow him, and he was on the marquee.
This was in the main room or the OR?
He was in the OR.
Okay.
And they popped in, and people, it was packed, because people were like, see Richard Pryor literally on Sunset Strip. Now, what they didn't know, what they didn't remember, his affliction
he was getting multiple
sclerosis.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, with heavy heart in the room, it would take about 5 minutes to assist him from his wheelchair up to that stage, and he would do his act, and he wasn't, prowling around the stage like he used to. He was sitting there and speaking about, but still anchored in what was actually happening in his world, and the simplicity of daily things, and you're hearing his comedic mind work these daily things, which is different than what they're used to seeing, and so you can feel the audience there's a heaviness because they're seeing him in a different light.
Right.
And
they're seeing a fragile.
They're seeing him affected, and it would also be a 5 minutes to help him, assist him off the stage, and he would sit in the back room next to Mitzi's seat, and I was as they were helping his chair, because usually when it's the next comic, they say your name and you bounce up there, and I couldn't as they were doing that, and they were like, get up there. Mitzi was like, get up there, Sandy, get up there, get on that stage. Okay. And I go and I do my set, but understand, because it's Richard Pryor, people are there, and some of the room just cleared out because that's all they wanted to see. And there's others who were all shoving their little napkins up in his face, going, will you sign this? As he's sitting in the seat. So I'm doing my set, and first thing I say was, can you say sacrificial lamb? And I was like, this kind of set will put a hair on your chest. I'm just trying to do my stuff, trying to be up, but while people are walking, right. Wait a second, and then I go upstairs, I was like, oh my God, and Mitzi goes, in her signature voice, she goes, Sandy, come over here, Richard wants to say something to you. And I went over and I leaned at them because they were sitting next to her, and I leaned low, and all of these people were holding up their napkins to him. Could you sign this? Can you sign this? Can you sign this? And he reached up his hand like he was parting the Red Sea, and just like reached over, and it was fragile. It's fragile, and he reached over from my hand and said, "Hold your hand. I'll show you." And he goes, you're very funny. And I was like, oh. I said, you should see me when I don't have to follow you. and he just went, and Mitzi just leaned over and smiled, and I just bowed, and I said, thank you for, I just showered him with gratitude, and he just smiled, and he just nodded, and that showered me, and it I'm cloaked in that.
This was after you did Def Comedy Jam?
Yeah, because by the time I was there, what brought me to LA, trying to think of the time frame, yeah, that was after that. Had to be after that. Yeah, because I hadn't come back. I was, a still struggling college student, and on stage, and just like, how am I gonna, what do I do after I do this performance? But it all started coming together in a whirlwind. But I was very, we talk about artistry and the process of an artist. I was very focused and making things happen. Some call it manifesting, or creating things in process.
Let's talk about manifesting, because you were the one who turned me on to Anthony Robbins.
Tony Sparks put me on to Tony Robbins. He gave me a cassette tape flap of Tony Robbins and Les Brown, and I was listening to this stuff, and as a struggling artist, top ramen and bologna sandwiches in the microwave,
fried bologna sandwiches,
and microwave bologna sandwiches, and going, I believe. walking your success. I'm just like, if they say so, and walking in belief, and also Shakti Gawain. I must say, Shakti Gawain's creative visualization was so powerful, in all the different aspects of your life to focus on that. I was manifesting at an incredible rate. I was just in the zone. It puts you in the zone because you're able to be aware of synchronicities and opportunities. You're like, I should call so and so, or I should go to this because that's part of, you start to see connections in your way in the world, in the way you move, and the things that you look into or follow up with. It's not just something random that shows up, but it influences you, and your instincts kick in, and you're led in a beautiful way. And so I was manifesting things that people were just like, you just started. I mean, and I'd have been doing stand-up, honestly, 6 months, 6 months, less than a year, before I got my back-to-back development deals. But once again, the writing was there. It had been road tested. The character work was there, and so it's not like it was just randomly. There was artistry behind that influenced that. And then you get into other things too, being a woman in the industry, being sometimes the only one. And even today, you'll find one woman or no woman on a lineup. And I like to call those sausage fest shows. Sausage Festivus. But,
who have been your mentors in stand-up? Guys who have because for the most part it's been men who have kind of taken you under their wing.
I think you'll find a variety within the comedic community. You'll find your heroes, from the full spectrum of heroes to vultures. You know what I mean? And there are some that will take you under the wing and are so protective of you and see your light and see your way in this industry and believe in you and keep you encouraged despite what's going on.
Who are a few of those people for you? Because for me, it is Jackson Purdue.
Yes.
It is Daryl Savad. It is Charles Cozart. There were a few of the Comedy Store regulars that when I started, like kind of rallied around me and helped me along.
Yeah.
And Daryl Savad was great at helping me learn how to write.
Yeah.
That there's a specific way of writing stand-up that's different to just writing.
Right. I have a few. Definitely would be Richard Pryor would be the first. I would say Shane Forbes, definitely. The beasts, too. Robert Townsend. It would also be, I recall, Arsenio Hall. I had to follow Arsenio Hall, and he was like, "Great set." I'm like, "Great career." I was like, "I got this." There's so many.
Arsenio is also a supporter because I remember being at the Comedy Store, having to follow him.
Yes.
And again, when you follow somebody big, the room empties out after them.
Absolutely.
And so the room had emptied out, and I was trying to get my footing, and Arsenio was in the back. Do your set. Just do your set, and that calmed me and allowed me to. And I remember that was such a gracious.
Yes.
That was so gracious because sometimes you had very high profile comics who would come in. They would bump you, and then when you got on stage, they were rude and they were talking while you were doing your set, or I encountered some of the ugliness of that. So Arsenio has a good place in my heart because he and when he would come in, he was easy. It wasn't like don't talk to me because I'm Arsenio Hall.
Right.
So I really appreciated that.
I would say Rick Overton.
Yes.
Charlie Hill.
Oh, Charlie Hill.
Famous Native American
Love
comic.
Charlie Hill.
In your face, bold trailblazer. And he was such a champion, and he would give me books of influence and things like that. And
me too.
Sandy, I want you to read this. I want you to check this out. And I have to say, Tony Sparks. Tony Sparks was my first in the Bay Area. Godfather Comedy was my first champion, and he's just teaching me the rules of comedy to understand why I knew someone was funny, but even go deeper and to scrape those surfaces so that you understand why this is funny. My nickname, you said called it Black
Carol Burnett.
Carol Burnett, but in college, my nickname was Bluesy, as a Black Lucille Ball, and so that is my foundation, is my facial expressions and the physicality and the playing with the audience and the raised eyebrow, because that's what I learned. I grew up doing. Well, impressions.
you do screwball comedy very well.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's
that was my first sense of comedy, was of doing impressions. Like my first impression was Charlie Chaplin, and I would do that, or I would do things to stay up at night. So I would take like the plastic tree This is real. But a plastic tree, and late at night after my bedtime, I would just kind of walk into the living room with everybody and kind of walk behind the tree with the tree across the room. And because they would start laughing, Sandy, okay, you can stay up. And I'm like, yes. I mean, I was rewarded for being funny, you know, and and so I use those different tools and understand that it is different for a woman, and it's changing. We've so many women that are broken through now, but it's not always like that, and we still have our challenges. And I just am finding my way. I'm finding my way back to stand-up to the point where I love it. I stepped away from it because I had so much TV and other things going on that I began to miss it and understand that it's intrinsic to what I do and expressing myself.
What do you love about stand-up?
I love, what's different about stand-up than theater or in theater or film and television, which the foundation of those are theater as well, is that you get instant feedback from the audience on your thoughts, your reaction, on what you're doing. If a singer sings a song, the audience may not like that song, they think, oh well. But in stand-up, you live or die by that sword. If they don't like you. That's how it feels. So it's such a teetering thing. But when you're on, I don't think there's a better feeling when you're on that flying carpet of humor, taking the audience on a ride, making the audience bend, is what they say, is when they're laughing so hard that they're bowling over. That is a joy. And so my goal at this point is to follow my comedy brethren that are beast modes, and to be able to just grab the audience by the neck and not let go. When I was studying at NYU, there was a comic that was performing in Washington Square Park to random people, and his name was Dave Chappelle. And
was
it was
he with
so
Charles
fascinating.
Barnett?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
He was with Charles Barnett, also a legend
who was his mentor.
Who was his mentor.
That's right.
And it was so fascinating because all of us were just waiting to get our spots at Boston Comedy Club in New York. But Dave Chappelle didn't wait. There was a boldness to him and Charles Barnett, because they would stand in Washington Square Park, do stand-up, take turns, and then pass around a hat. They would do 3 shows a day, minimum 3 shows a day. And I had such respect for that, because it's one thing when people come to a comedy club, they paid entrance fee or not, they've got a 2-drink minimum, they're there to see comedy. When you have to be so engaging that people stop what they're doing and where they're going in New York to listen to you, that builds a certain muscle. And to see him do that, was exciting and baffling at the same time. It's like, this is fascinating, because people sitting there walking the dog and turning around, doing their thing. But and also that muscle of, I don't care if you aren't paying attention. I'm going to do what I'm doing and be so engaging that you will stop what you're doing. So that was interesting to see that. That's where I want to go. That's what I'm focusing on. And so there's a whole renewed interest and joy to stand up now, in a new way than what I had before, and dabbling into territories I hadn't touched before.
What would you say to a young woman out there who wants to pursue stand-up?
You do it. If the mic is calling you, you do it. And it's set up now where you can get up more often, in a lot of different places. It's available now in places we didn't have those options. If we weren't booked at one of the main rooms, you weren't getting up unless there was some random show that hardly ever happened. With now the inundation of comedy, a lot of venues have that as a thing. Get on the open mic, speak your truth, do your comedy. If it calls to you, you must do it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was wonderful. Such a treat. Thank you so much for being part of this episode. And if you loved what you heard, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. All of Sandy's information is located in the description below, so you can get access to her on social media. You can find out about her show. You can find out how you can book her, all on the description below. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next week, see ya.